The World Without Visas. Around the World with Valery Shanin. The travel across China became the next stage of the World Without Visas project, within which Valery Shanin travels only around the countries, visa-free for Russians. On this travel, his fellow travelers were Mikhail Ivanov from Alma-Ata, Minor Klemantieva from the island of Sakhalin, and Ivan Obaskalov from Surgut. Is tasted and drunk, advertised and sold. The production technology and traditional ways of consumption of tea have strongly intertwined with the Chinese mentality and religion. It is possible to understand it only in the context of the full structure of Chinese life. It will also become the main goal of our travel across the southern provinces of China, from Shanghai to Chengdu. We will visit large, highly modern megalopolises and small villages, the tourist centers and godforsaken places, mountains and the oceanic coast, palaces and huts, tea plantations and factories, museums and tea shops, Buddhist and Taoist monasteries and temples. Our travel begins in Shanghai. In the 19th century, the trade missions of all large Chinese tea companies were located in Shanghai. From here, the tea caravans would leave on the way through Siberia to St. Petersburg and Moscow. The British sailing ships would load up in the local port and bring tea to England and countries of Western Europe. The consulates and trade missions of European countries opened in Shanghai. From here, they would carry tea, and from India to here imported opium. Shanghai nearly became a European city. Here, in parks, there were signs placed. The entrance is forbidden for dogs and Chinese. In 1887, in Shanghai, there were 420 foreign tea trade companies. Among them, 252 English, 65 German, 28 American, 25 Japanese, 18 of both French and Russian, 5 Spanish, and 16 other. After the Chinese Revolution, the foreigners were asked to leave from here. However, they have been coming back in recent years. Shanghai itself has been transforming. Globalization in its peaceful manner performs the same as what used to be possible to do before, only at the gunpoints of ships' cannons. China copies Western technologies and along with them the way of life. While there are new Chinese restaurants opening in Western countries and more Chinese tea is exported from the country, Chinese with eagerness, worthy of better use, seek borrowing of the advanced achievements of the Western world. From Shanghai to Hangzhou, the capital of the Zhejiang province, it is about 200 kilometers. This distance is covered in 45 minutes only by the high-speed train Hukan. Hangzhou, with only 5 million residents, seems like a small town in comparison with the huge Shanghai, although it is one of the largest industrial and financial centers of the country. There are skyscrapers and the underground here and air polluted by the industrial emissions. But all of this is a little away from the old town. It is as though specially conserved, turned into the reservation for tourists. It is rather easy to orient oneself through the intertwining streets. It is only needed to keep the direction to the west. Sooner or later, we will meet the east coast of the Xihu Lake. The name means Western Lake in translation. According to one of the legends, the water comes to the lake from the mouth of the golden bull that lives at the bottom. Lei Fenta Pagoda, or the Pagoda of Six Harmonies, as translated from Chinese, rests on the top of the Nangpingshan Hill on the southern coast of the Western Lake. The southeastern part of the Western Lake is visible from the top of the pagoda. The park and the pond were laid at the base of the pagoda. Locals come here to meet each other, play dominoes, and to drink tea. There is no other way here. We will eat here, take glasses, we will try everything. Directly opposite the pagoda, there is the ancient monastery of Jingxi, resting on the hill slope, facing the Nanping Lake. It was founded in 954 by the local native, the famous monk Yunmin Yanshu. This monastery was one of the main Buddhist centers of all southern China. Many masters of the Caodun sect come from here. The adherents of Caodun pay special attention to the technique of consciousness purification. In particular, they practice a quite rare type of meditation, a walking meditation. It requires a high degree of concentration and the ability to abstract from the environment. It is necessary to be able to keep calm even among the shameless tourists with cameras and video recorders. The real Buddhists don't give importance to if they are photographed or not. They are engaged not only in spiritual practices in this monastery, no less attention is paid to studying of the sacred texts. However, this type of bookwork requires the ability to abstract from the noise and the vanity created by numerous tourist groups. In this kind of nervous atmosphere, there is no other way than a cup of tea. The Museum of Tea is not only a museum building with an exposition, but also a real tea plantation. Besides the traditional exhibits that are here too, there is a huge number of modern multimedia means in the museum.
Hangzhou only one. In China only one tea museum. 只有一个. You can try 4 kind of different tea. First, taste the local tea, green tea, Nanjing cha. Local tea. It's tea museum outside the tea plants monastery, also Nanjing. This one, green tea. It's the first warm tea pot, clean tea pot. Here green tea, 1 year 3 seasons pick tea leaves, spring, summer, autumn. The spring tea is best. And this green tea, temperature not boiling water, 75 degrees. And this green tea, you can put water 3 or 4 times. After tea leaves, also you can make Hangzhou very famous tea dish, cooking. Green tea mix shrimp altogether. Also you can eat tea leaves. Because green tea inside a lot of vitamin C, vitamin E, very good for skin. Green tea, 1 egg white, a little honey, mix all together, facial mask. And the best quality green tea, this color, no strong, very light color, but taste strong, a little sweet quality. Like this green tea, first smell. In China, flower tea, 2 kind of jasmine, small boy and big boy. This is big boy. Outside is white tea leaves, inside is 2 kind of flower. This is inside 2 kind of flower, jasmine flower and Tibet flower. Lychee. Black tea, yeah. Black tea very good for stomach. Okay, you can see it's flower. Lotus flower, very beautiful. Yeah, 5 times.
and further during the tea ceremony, the main attention of the narration, while talking about new kinds of tea, was about the advantages for health and how many times it is possible to cook the tea leaves. We are hurrying back to the lake, and we are just in time for the beginning of the daily performance. Almost all places are taken. Today, as well as hundreds of years ago, sunset is live. People come to look at it. With nightfall, the supporters of active lifestyle come out in the streets and squares. The disco under the open sky begins. However, with Chinese specifics, dancers from young to old do not gather in general crowd and make long lines like on parades. They also dance in unison, or at least try to do it. Hangzhou, the capital of the Zhejiang province, and the local Zhejiang cuisine is one of the 10 main cuisines of China. It has many dishes with fish and seafood. They cook well and cheap always and everywhere, but there are sanitary problems here. It is better not to drink tap water and not to eat raw products. It is even best to see with your own eyes in what kind of conditions and how exactly the food was prepared. The same comes to tea. It is also cooked directly in the shops, in front of potential buyers and gapers. The local type of tea, Xihu Longjing, has a very long history. Already during the Tan's era, it was made in the Tianlan and Linyin monasteries. Since then, the technology did practically not change. To make 1 kilogram of high-quality tea, it is necessary to handpick 70 to 80,000 whole buds with leaves. After the leaves dry a little, they get sorted in 3 types, depending on the size of the leaves. Each type is roasted separately, at a different temperature, and has a different processing time. Already in ancient times in China, there were huge pantheons created that had thousands of gods and divine patrons. Most often their places of living were considered to be the mountains. Nearly on each, even slightly noticeable top, there is a Buddhist or Taoist temple dedicated to one of the local gods. But just like among gods, there is still a hierarchy. The home places of more important gods are considered more holy. The Buddhists have 4 sacred mountains. The closest to Hangzhou, there is the sacred mountain of pudong. We are going there.
Москва тянет и вайшан. 中国人讲，是这样吧？普陀山，普陀山在南那个地方，不是对吧？普陀山南面，南普陀山。
In the initial Buddhism, in the Hinayana Buddhism, the redemption of human from fetters of sufferings and achievement of nirvana were the result only of his own efforts and persistence. Even Buddha, who was considered, however, more advanced, was still a human and could help only with advice and by being an example. In the Mahayana Buddhism that was spread in China, the person can count on the help from above. So first, the historical Shakyamuni Buddha turned into God, and then he appeared to be just one more in the assembly of gods. Besides the gods in the Buddhist pantheon, bodhisattvas have appeared. They are something like Christian saints. The island of Pudong is the place of worship of the Indian Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara. In China, Avalokiteshvara has turned into the goddess of mercy, anthropomorphous by appearance, Guanyin. Avalokiteshvara possesses the ability to take different appearances. Guanyin can also be seen in most different looks, but most often she is represented in the form of a middle-aged woman dressed in a gown that has faint resemblance with the Indian sari. The huge statue of the goddess was established on the rock at the southern tip of the island. By the size, it only concedes to the well-known Statue of Liberty in New York, 33 meters against 46. Guanyin protects from different misfortunes, but she is exceptionally good at promoting a childbirth. Practically all women worship her for this reason. Some pray to become pregnant, others to successfully give birth, the third to protect their children from misfortunes. To deserve the grace of the goddess of mercy, Chinese also come to the Putuoshan island. It is even surprising that there are places of the island that were turned into one of the main tourist sites. Moreover, located close to such super tourist places as Shanghai and Hangzhou, where one could still build a hut and live in complete solitude. There are no problems with hotels on the island. For any taste and budget, staying overnight in tents is not accepted on the seashore here. We are now aiming for the city of Suzhou. We are returning to the continent by the ferry and making change to the bus. We have arrived to Suzhou already after dark. Fortunately, it is easy to find a hotel here, and you won't starve to death. Suzhou, one of the oldest cities of the valley of Yangtze, it was founded about 2,500 years ago. There are three religions in China: Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism. The Confucians teach that it is necessary to live according to the strict rules of etiquette, and the most honorable and prestigious profession, the profession of an official. The higher the rank, the more grace one receives. The Taoists, on the contrary, call for disengagement and spontaneity, for withdrawal of oneself from the dense cities into the woods and mountains closer to nature. The Buddhists generally suggest to be released from the extremities and to think only of enlightenment instead of everyday vanity. These three religions peacefully coexist in the soul of each Chinese person, and it has always been this way. The officials spent working hours in service and leisure time in gardens. Here, at least for some time, it was possible to forget about all the instructions of the real Confucian and to feel oneself as the Taoist wise man or the Buddhist philosopher. Nothing should be done in a hurry in the garden. It is the place for leisure and idleness. Among the miniature groves, mountains and rivers, the creators of gardens managed to squeeze in a huge variety of inhabited and semi-inhabited constructions. One lodge served as a resting place, the second for receiving of the guests, the third for tea drinking. And back on the train, it is the most convenient means of transport in China, quick, cheap and rather comfortable. The railway station in Nanjing is located on the opposite bank of the Xuanwu Lake from the walls of the old town. The wall that was once surrounding the whole old town around its perimeter was the longest and most impressive of all Chinese fortifications. With its length of about 33.5 kilometers, it used to reach the height of 12 meters. Only a rather small part has remained until our days, and the majestic gate of Zonghua, the biggest gate of the city. The majority of the architectural and historical monuments that remain until now is located not in the center of Nanjing, but in its suburb. Nanjing has a very complicated and confusing subway system. It's hard to understand it at once. It is only in Chinese. The purple mountains, overgrown with dense wood, are more similar to hills. Their maximum height is only 448 meters above sea level. There was the summer palace of the Chinese emperor here. It was here that tea was introduced to the court etiquette for the first time. This promoted an active distribution of the original drink, first in the environment of officials and later among simple people. What has remained from the imperial palace? Almost nothing. Only the stone foundations of some buildings and the majestic stone gate and the huge park.